We've got a top 5 coming your way, and we're going back to the 70s for it. Our top 5 soul hits of the decade is up next. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Welcome as usual, right, Eric? We're a very welcoming pair.
Yeah, we are indeed.
We are just come on in.
And this is our Morning Joe edition, right? Another great, we always seem to have a little bit of more energy, I guess you could say in the morning. At least I'd like to think so.
Our evening episodes are drowsier and just much more.
Well, they're more laid back. Let's put it that way.
It's a different vibe when it's at night.
It is. Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's cool. It's jazzier. It's,
well,
like that kind of mellow, not like we're tired and falling asleep mellow. It's kind of
says you.
Says me. That's how I feel. That the morning, you're right. It's kind of a little more. I
have to cop to that sometimes. There are times where I'm just kind of like,
he's snoozing. Phoning it in is what it's called.
Hey, we try, right? We all try.
Top 5 episodes that we have phoned in. Usually if we feel like we're phoning it in, we actually don't release the episode. So
yeah,
we've had those as well. So those you'll never see. You're only going to get the best from us. And to find out more about us, you can reach us at 3324 Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Go ahead and hit us up over there. And if you like the visual versions of these things, go to our YouTube. Just put 3324 Podcast into the YouTube search bar, and you should find us. And then you can kind of like and subscribe at the same time. That'd be great. That helps us as well. So we are unrolling a top 5. Wow, this was one of the most. I think this might have been the most challenging, surprisingly enough.
Okay,
for me.
Okay,
it's very not because it was hard to find the songs. It was hard to pick from all the songs that I remember on AM radio in the 70s. It really brought to the forefront to me of how much soul music was really a part of the tapestry of the music I was listening to as a child on AM radio. We've talked about that in the past, where you kind of got it all.
Mm-hmm.
And looking for songs and looking at different playlists of music, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was a
lot there.
But I came to the conclusion that there were a bunch of songs that I just, right on the top of my head. I kind of stuck with those. Because the more I dug deep, I was like, oh, but that's a great one. That's a great one. And the next thing you know, you got like 100 songs.
It was.
And there's no way you could pick from that. It's very,
You're
very
right.
difficult.
Yeah, I had 3 that were solid and hadn't moved. And then there was like 2 I kind of switched around. And of course, as always, we've got 5 each. We're going to have honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to make a super fantastic, funky playlist out of this on Spotify. This is going to be a great great playlist that I'm looking forward to.
And of course, we always encourage people who listen to add to the playlist if they want. If you pick your own choices, if we haven't, if there's a song we haven't chosen, we'll add it. Yeah.
Comment on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. Any one of those. Give us a title. We will add to the playlist because we love to crowdsource it as well, and it just makes it for a better and longer listening experience as well.
Oh yeah.
So we absolutely invite you to join us in our endeavor to curate the best of the 70s soul. What I did realize too, as well, is that there were still a ton in the soul genre, a ton of vocal groups.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Probably more than you would think would be in the 60s or the 50s. I mean, it was like, Temptations, OJs, the Spinners, the Neville Brothers. There was just so many different vocal groups. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, the Shy Lights. It was like, I'm like, geez, Louise, Tavares, and you, the Manhattans, and you really forget that kind of, it almost seems throwbacky, but in the 70s, that really was what was driving. The charts were chock full of these vocal groups.
Yeah. And there were quite a few, I would say, they put out, I would say a good majority of them put out multiple albums.
Oh yeah.
But as far as hits go, sometimes there was just maybe a one-hit wonder or, a few hits here and there, but then they all kind of seemed to just die off, didn't they? It was, maybe a few
once
survived.
Once kind of disco kind of took over.
Yeah, I mean,
as a genre that kind of changed, soul music because then it morphed from disco, and then that brought it into the 80s, and then by then it was things were changing rapidly on all fronts of music.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's why I think us going into the 70s is probably like it's the most fertile land and territory.
I agree.
Because there was socially conscious stuff going on as well in the 70s. You had that, but you had all this great stuff. So let's not bloviate about it any further. Or me, I shouldn't say.
Wow, what a word! Is that a word?
I will
bloviate.
Yes, bloviate. I will stop pontificating about it. We will get right to the meat and potatoes of why you came.
Oh,
so we're going to do top 5, and then of course we've got some. You have honorable mentions, yes, n'est-ce pas?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
I have 10 songs solid.
Good, me too.
If there is any overlap, then I will pick from that list. There might be.
I've got two. I've got one in the top 5 and one honorable mention that may show up in either one of yours.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
I don't know. I can tell you this much. Okay, the ones that are on my 5 are early 70s. They don't exceed.
I was going to say the same thing.
They don't exceed 74.
Me too.
Oh, okay.
Well, there was nothing.
Now we're getting interesting here. Now it's
there was nothing past 1974 on my top 5 as well.
Fantastic.
This could be the shortest episode on record,
right?
All right. Well, let's start. Start. Just kick us off with number 5. What is your number 5?
Perfect way to open this thing, especially from a playlist standpoint, and it was the perfect way to open an album. Bill Withers. One of my favorite albums, Just As I Am. The song Harlem it's not a hit, but it should be. I don't understand why this song was not played as on the radio half as much as Ain't No Sunshine, which is the single from the album. Grandma's Hands is another. But this song, I just love the way it builds, man. It just kicks off with this sort of acoustic. It's almost folky in a way too. It's like a blend of folk and soul, and especially when the organ kicks in, then it's a soul song, and it just builds and it builds and it builds. And I just love that, the idea of him explaining the conditions of Harlem, how people that live there, it's hard, it's difficult, but also could be joyous. There's a sense of community. This is life, and I love songs like this that kind of tell that story. So it just really kicks off, and I just again, the buildup of it is just a perfect way to kick this off. So
yeah, and that's what we were seeing in the early 70s was those kind of, again, from the 60s where it was I love you, we love me, I love you, let's do that. Rock and roll, soul, all the genres started kind of dealing with more personal subjects, right? And what life was like for a Black person in the 70s growing up, or what it was like for someone in country rock or whatever, what the slice of life was for them. Just more personal type songs that were starting to come out, which made it a lot more interesting. And I think I may have one or two in there. I'm not sure. Could be. But that's a great addition. When you said Bill Withers, of course we all think of Lean on Me.
Of course, from his second record, which was a bigger,
a lovely day.
Yes,
which are those are a little bit more upbeat, right? That kind of is the upbeat side of things too. There's also positive messaging as well. Good. All right. My number 5, 1974 hit, released in June of 1974, hit number 3. This was like the funk. This is bringing the funk. It's Tell Me Something Good by Rufus and Chaka Khan. Oh my God, right? It's just so like, does not sound like it's from 1974. It's just, although it kind of does, but it has like that really, really meaty, funky sound to it.
I think it's one of those songs where you have no idea exactly where it
Yeah.
fits. It could be a later 70s song. It could be,
I thought it was.
It could be a 60s song. I mean, it has that sort of timeless sound to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Chaka Khan with the group was called Rufus with Chaka Khan. She was the
Yeah.
lead singer of it, and then she would eventually branch off into a solo career. But just it's got that 70s funky sound to it.
Oh yeah.
Chaka Khan's vocal on this is just really kind of sultry and just kind of teasing. So it's got all the makings for just a great soul funky song, and it was kind of like I wanted something a little bit kind of grittier in there, and this song kind of fits that bill with that wah wah guitar, and the song just kind of takes its time, right? It's not really in a rush to get anywhere. It's just kind of sneaking along, and
and how many times has it been used in commercials, movies, TV shows? I mean, it's just it's
probably for restaurants, like they show the burger and it's like, tell me something good.
Of course, but it's such a go-to song though.
Yeah.
It just has that that commercial appeal, but also on the other hand, it could be could do its job in other ways.
Yeah. So nice, so nice and funky. I really was kind of thinking about it. I'm like, I want something a little dirty, a little nasty.
I'm glad that you say that, Uncle, because I kind of resisted, going for, because there's a tremendous amount of like real like hardcore funk groups that I really enjoyed, and I kind of resisted putting them on the list because I
stayed within the charts, you know me,
right? But it's like for me, like soul, I went for the probably a little bit more softer soul route.
I'll get there.
Just putting that out there. So I'm glad that you.
I'm going to catch up with you.
Yeah.
That was the first shot across the bow.
Okay.
Good. Rufus and Chaka Khan.
Well,
what do you got for number 4?
Okay, number 4 from 1973. I also thought about, by the way, the different cities and where these people hailed from, and they did have, each city had a very distinct sound, didn't it?
Absolutely.
And one of my favorites is Philly. Mm-hmm. Philly. So I know we've talked about this before, and that sound from Philadelphia is just, but I went with, I think it's a one-hit wonder, 3 Degrees, When Will I See You Again? Mm-hmm. It has it's almost kind of on the cusp of being a disco type song, but it's very melancholy. It's sort of like, but it has that sort of that overproduction, but it's the overproduction that you loved in the 70s, mm-hmm. right? It gives you that feeling of, and the song, it sounds like an upbeat song for the most part, but it also with the lyrics are telling you,
questioning, are we in
love? Or, it just, and I love the vocal harmony on it. It's just I'm
going to jump in on that because I chose that also, not as my number 4, but as another one. So there's a crossover.
Here you go.
hit number 2 in 1974, written by Gamble and Huff, who were like the songwriting producing team of that Philadelphia sound, right? They were, they were trying to go against, Berry Gordy and Motown, and they were trying to create their own pocket. Yeah. And they were doing it, like you said, they were doing it with lush production. Mm-hmm. And I love this song.
Yeah.
I absolutely, when I hear it, it takes me back to when I was a kid. Like it was just a beautiful vocal performance. You're absolutely right. Like everything about this song, the strings, the production, the vocal performance, all that stuff just kind of meshes together for mm-hmm. just a great piece of music. And, it starts off with that organ in the beginning, and then the strings come in
and it kicks in, and you got the strings say it all. It's the strings, and then there's like those little bursts of horn, right? That come in every now and again. Not necessarily this song, but other songs of it, of that region, as it were. But I mean,
was a force. Gamble and Huff were on top of things.
I kind of thought that you would have put this on your list, and I was kind of like, man,
it was one of the first ones I put on. It was,
of course, yeah. But it's one of those songs where you, especially nowadays, you hear it on the radio if you're still listening, whatever. And it just, man, it takes you back. Just that sound just reminds me of cityscapes. Even driving through Manhattan. Also, you could also. Yeah. argue that the New York sound was very similar, but there's a slight difference there, I think, in terms of,
Yeah, smooth as silk is this song.
Yeah,
It really
you're right.
is. It's kind of, it's just so easy to listen to, but in a good, not because it's simple, but just because everything is just so nicely done. The production is just so sweet on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so that's going to be my number 4 as well. It was in a different spot, but that's fine. We'll move it to number 4. That's quite all right. We'll swap it out. So we just killed 2 birds with 1 stone there.
All right.
Is there more to come? I don't know. This could be interesting.
Could be.
We don't really have crossovers very often.
No.
Although you would think we would, but not too
And I
often.
always tend to go for the obscure anyway, right? But in this case,
I mean, it is kind of an obscure song because they didn't have a whole lot of, the 3 Degrees didn't have a whole lot of hits, although they should have. They're criminally underrated.
Yeah.
For their sound as a vocal trio, and then again you put Gamble and Huff behind them producing great songs, and they wrote the song as well, so they knew exactly what they were doing. So it is a surprise that they weren't able to parlay that into something more. So all right, Let's move on to number 3. That was a quick number 4. What do you got for number 3? Take it over.
All right, this group hails from New York, and full disclosure, there is a famous father to a famous actor who was the main singer of this group, and it's the main ingredient. Everybody plays the fool. I love this song. I always have. It's one of my favorite songs from the genre. I love what it has to say. It just when the chips are down, you think about it, and it's just it's such a great message. But Cuba Gooding Jr.'s father is the lead singer of this group, and it's just such a great tune. I love the way it kicks off, and again, it has that very slick production, that overproduction in this case too, and then the strings, the little staccato, and it kind of, it's almost a little bit humorous in a way. It starts off with him talking. You say you say you're gonna die, you want to kill yourself, and no, come on, man. Everybody goes through this. Everybody, it's a common thing.
There's no exception to the rule.
Don't sweat it. That's the thing. That was the attitude, and I love it.
No exception to the rule.
It's very upbeat, and it's a very positive song.
Yeah.
To really get you out of those blues. So yep.
That's a great one.
1972 is when came out. I thought it was much later. Honestly, it has that sort of later.
It has a timeless feel.
Yeah,
it absolutely does. All right, my number 3. We're gonna stay in 1972.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint. I didn't know this. Jeff Beck plays guitar on the song.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't know. Stevie Wonder, Superstition.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I had to have Stevie Wonder on the list somewhere. I mean, he was just so...
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It was probably... I remember when I used to go to the library as a youngster, they had his album Talking Book. Which Superstition is on, but I always just used to listen to You Are the Sunshine of My Life because that was the opening track on the album.
Yeah.
And I always used to listen to You Are the Sunshine of My Life. Superstition, released in October 1972, hit number 1, of course. At this point, Stevie Wonder was playing pretty much all the instruments on his album, but he always liked to have a guitar player play for him. So in this, he played all the keyboards. He actually played bass on the song too. Jeff Beck, they connected somehow. Jeff Beck wanted to work with Stevie Wonder, and they both they worked on Superstition. Jeff Beck actually came up with the drum beat for it. He actually came up with that beat. And Stevie Wonder's like, keep it going. And then they kind of, Stevie Wonder wrote Superstition, and then Jeff Beck is like, well, I want to record this as well because this is really good.
Oh yeah.
In exchange for me helping you out, I want to do it with, he had a 3-piece. It was Beck, Appice, and someone else. I forget what is one of his 3-piece combos.
Is it Jan Hammer? Could have been.
What's that?
Jan Hammer, maybe.
It might have been.
Yeah.
It was whatever he was doing. They were going to release it. So they recorded it. Jeff Beck recorded it. It was supposed to come out first, and then there was some hang up. And Berry Gordy is like, "We got to get the Stevie Wonder version out first because this thing is a hit. But like, this is a slam dunk." So they got Superstition out, Stevie Wonder's version, and the rest was history.
Talking Book, was the album that preceded Songs in the Key of Life, or was it after?
I think it was before.
I know it wasn't a double album. I know Intervisions.
No, Talking Book was a single album.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, Talking Book
like
was
the New World record to Out of the Blue.
He had a couple. Stevie Wonder did a couple of double albums, but actually, Songs in the Key of Life was 76, fulfilling this first finale. Intervisions, no, it was a few back. Talking Book was 72.
Okay,
Intervisions came out after that with Living for the City, which was actually my runner-up Stevie Wonder song. I love Living for the City because that you talk about talking about what life is like and everything. I was like, Living for the City. I just really love the descriptive, the images he creates with his words on that are just incredible. But Superstition kind of continues the funk.
Yeah.
But it's Stevie Wonder and a great vocal from him. He really lays it out on Superstition. So I was like, and I had to have Stevie Wonder. It wasn't a matter of if he was going to be on the list. It was going to matter of what song it was going to be.
What song? Sure.
And I think towards the end of the 70s, he was still having hits, but they were really starting to smooth out and mellow out.
Yeah.
And I really liked his earlier stuff had a little bit of that grit on it still.
Oh yeah, the funk.
It had a little bit of those rough edges, which really kind of I liked when that era of Stevie Wonder. Before kind of smoothed out. Isn't She Lovely? It's a great song, but it's kind of, you start to see he's kind of going into smoother territories. But this kind of earlier stuff,
you could definitely put him in that category of people who are progressive punk, or no, I mean soul, progressive soul or funk. Funkadelic comes to mind too. I was really tempted there, but again, I didn't want to get too.
And a side note, Stevie Wonder wrote "Tell Me Something Good" for Rufus and Chaka Khan.
Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see that. Yeah,
that's great. If you listen to it, you can absolutely picture him singing it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's got his kind of, once you know it and you listen to it, like, oh wow, yeah, it's got his earmarks all over it. You can definitely Stevie Wonder. So my number 3 is Superstition by Stevie Wonder.
Nice.
With some support. You don't really hear too much guitar in Superstition because it is so keyboard.
Well, it's more synclavier. I thought that was just all like keyboard. That synclavier.
Beck is in there somewhere. He's buried in there. So he was a part of it. So that was number 3 already. Keep in mind, hit us up on social media, and if you're thinking about stuff as we're going through the list, go ahead and put it on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, and we will add it to our dynamic, ever-growing playlist that we'll have on Spotify. Number 2.
My number 2 is this for my wife.
Okay.
I'm going to put this one out because we're always joking about this song, but it is a really nice song. Okay. And, you could laugh at it because it has all the little birds and everything. So I think you know where I'm going with this.
I know exactly where you're going.
It's Loving You by Minnie Riperton.
Oh, of course.
Who, again, another famous celebrity. This is Maya Rudolph's mother.
Yep.
Who sang. And at the end of the song, she calls out her name because it's talking about falling in love, talking about making love, talking about giving birth, to, having a child, because of and it's just, it's that wonderful, high pitch that she goes from one tone. I mean, it's amazing. You might think it's a gimmick. Some people might think it's cheesy, but I love it. I love when somebody can have that such vocal control, such, command.
Before Mariah Carey did it. Mariah Carey kind of pop, made it like into everything. This was a standalone.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah. And but I actually listened to a few other tracks off this record. It's a really great record. There's some really nice stuff on here. She does a few covers. But this was the hit. This was the one. This, you know it when you hear it. And again, I just love it. It just takes you back. That's the 70s for me right there. At least one of the sounds of that time. And again, it's not so much funky. It's more sort of indie. I would argue that, there's a lot of indie artists today who are trying to recapture this particular
very sparse,
very acoustic type of sound, right? I mean, little acoustic guitar, little flourishes, even jazzy, you might say. But yeah, it's a great one. Yep.
Yeah, and her vocal is just so passionate too. Like you really feel like she's not just singing; she's really kind of getting it across.
Yeah, the emotion,
which is important for a song like that. If it's going to be sparse like that, you need to sell it, and that's what that song is. Because there's no arrangement. It's her just kind of
it's selling it. She's telling exactly what there's no reading between the lines here. Is exactly what it's about.
She's the instrument in that song. It's like her.
Absolutely. Yep.
You like the lack of a big production really makes you focus on her and her vocal and what she does. And she just Minnie Riperton
doesn't seem to be any.
She passed away young.
No double tracking. Yeah, she died just a few years later, unfortunately. Yeah. So, Minnie Riperton, essential 70s. Of course. Yeah. So,
all right. That was your number 2.
That was my number 2. What's yours?
Right, my number 2 was another person that I could not leave off the list, but I had to figure out. And there was a song that was it was like sticking in my head. I'm like, damn, there's a song that I want, and I couldn't I was going through the greatest hits, and I'm like, I'm not finding it. I wanted Barry White. I needed to have Barry White on the list. Like I love
yes,
he was all of his songs start the same, pretty much where he's talking in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of doing like pillow talk, like, hey, baby, we've been together a long time. And I know that and then the song kicks in, right? What am I gonna do? I love those songs.
And he goes for it, doesn't he?
Oh my God, he's so great at it. When you listen to his hits, they all start the same. He's kind of chatting it up in the beginning,
right?
And then the song starts. But there was an instrument. He did, but I'm thinking, he did an instrumental.
Okay,
and what it was called, and it gives me whenever I hear it, it gives me the chills. This song gives me the chills when it starts for some reason. I don't know why, but it's called Love's Theme, but it's by the Love Unlimited Orchestra, which was his group. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
But the Love Unlimited Orchestra was like his, one of his project, but then he did stuff as as Barry White. So all the vocal stuff that you're used to and is kind of like was Barry White, but the Love's Theme, which was hit number 1 in 1973, and again, that was back in the day when instrumentals could hit number 1. You would hear that. Wow. The production on this that's what gives me the chills. It's just a straight up instrumental. It's a forerunner to it's not disco-y, but it's a forerunner to disco.
Yeah,
it's got some light horns. It's got the swirling violins, which you probably listen to it, be like, okay, I get why he likes this, but I couldn't remember what the song. I knew there was an instrumental out there that he did, but it wasn't under his greatest hits. It was under the Love Unlimited Orchestra.
Yeah,
which he did.
Great choice.
Just
that's a great choice. Yeah.
Well, of course, but it was going to be Barry White though. Like if I couldn't figure out what the song was, it was probably going to be like, "What am I going to do?" or like one of those songs.
You're my everything. Yeah,
yeah. Because he could still he's got that baritone voice, and he's got that. His voice was made for like that 70s kind of put the record on.
Yep.
Pour the wine.
And it worked.
Lay on the rug, lay on the fur rug type. You can set the wood paneled room,
the ladies' man.
You can set the mental image in your mind when you put on a Barry White song.
And this was at the day. I mean, we all look at this stuff now, and it's easy to poke fun at it, but this was a way of life, wasn't it? It was effective. It
was a masterpiece of music production.
This was reality.
Yeah. When I'm listening to it now, I'm like, oh my God, this is just so. There was these virtuoso performers like Gamble and Huff that were and Barry White that were looking at the production stuff, right?
Yeah.
That we want to make these really lush and beautiful pieces of music, and get great vocalists to put around it as well. And that was probably lost on me in the 70s, obviously, because as a kid, you're just kind of listening, and all this music is just kind of slapping you in the face.
Not to mention probably the endless array of session musicians that played on these songs.
Oh, yeah.
Like we probably know by name by
Absolutely.
now. I'm sure, like, oh, yeah, I know him, her, whatever,
all the people that Steely Dan would eventually steal.
Of course. Yeah.
Right?
That's right. Yeah.
Steely Dan would just kind of start grabbing these guys. But yeah, it's such a, and this is just a great thing because there's no vocal. So you can just kind of listen to this song and let it take you away. So that's number 2. All right, we're on number 1 already, but we've got honorable mentions. So we're gonna give you an extra 5 as well. Maybe.
Okay, so you talk about Stevie Wonder, and I thought about him as well, and I was like, you should, because he was big, he was important, right? So, but to me, I love I would say probably the most quote unquote important in terms of what he had to say politically and what he had to, a great outlook on, what it was like to be a Black person in the, in the hardships and, Curtis Mayfield. And I you got to go with his debut in 70, Move On Up. Fantastic song. Again, this would have been a good way to kick it off as well. I was trying to bookending. I was like, is it Harlem? But Harlem, I think, works better as an opener. This one could work as a closer, but because it has all that horn and the production sense. And this is when he left the Impressions. They were big in the 60s with People Get Ready and songs of that ill and Gypsy Woman. But here was a song that was like, yeah, we need to look to the future. Things are going to happen for us. He had such a positive attitude, so upbeat, whereas other artists of the time were kind of just giving it to you, the reality of the situation. This sucks. Why are we in this situation? Kind of, it's in my honorable mention. But this song, I always loved his the way he had a great out. It's like you could literally see him like looking up to the sky and like singing, that kind of, that positivity, that energy that he had, and it carried all the way through, the 80s and it's well into the 90s when he did that last album, Brave New World, which was a fantastic last effort because it was, it was tapping into the sort of, hip hop thing. And he was at that point, he was, I think, paralyzed, and just a couple of years later, he would, unfortunately,
there was a tragic accident on stage. Didn't a piece of stage rigging like fell on him?
That's right, and he was in a wheelchair ever since, and I guess, it just got progressively worse and worse, and but he kept that up all the way to the end. That attitude, that just don't let it, not deal with it. Sure, acknowledge it. But we gotta press on. We gotta fight. You gotta pick yourself up and and
keep on moving.
That was such a keep on moving. It was such a great man, awesome. In that way. And he inspired a lot of people. I remember having in the 90s, I had I'm not one for what those, people throw out those like tribute albums, willy nilly. This was probably one of my favorites because he had a lot of great people on it. Phil Collins was on it. Eric was on it. You had Sting. You had a lot of these artists who I knew genuinely they were into Curtis Mayfield and what he had to say. Branford Marsalis was, there was a whole slew. Bruce Springsteen did Gypsy Woman, which was a great rendition of the Impression song. So that was one of my favorite CDs at the time, but it got me to, I obviously went back and, listened to a lot of his older stuff. And this album's probably my favorite of the bunch. So it's Mayfield. And the song itself, I chose the single version, which is like 2-3 minutes long. The song itself on the album is like almost 9. So there is an extended version, but for the playlist purposes, we'll use the single, but it says what it has to say, because it just kind of keeps going, but but there's my number 1.
Cool.
Curtis Mayfield. Yep.
Curtis Mayfield.
Yes.
All righty. Mine is not as deep as that. Strictly in the pop realm, and this was like a two-hit wonder from this group, and it was from May of 1972, and this hit number 2. And you may be it might be a head scratcher for you, but it's the Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose, and the song is "Too Late to Turn Back Now."
I know it well. I'd love it.
I
Yeah, great
don't know
choice.
I don't know what it is about this song. I don't know what it is. There is something about this song that keeps me returning to it. You know, again, early 70s, but it doesn't sound like that, you know, that era. It seems like the soul music was really kind of timeless. That the production techniques or whatever didn't sound date where you can kind of date things.
Yeah.
And I didn't believe it was from 1972. Again, and it's amazing that both of us all picked things from 74 and before. I don't know if that means anything, but it kind of, or maybe it means that we were, you know, up till, you know, 74. So we'd be like 8 years old being exposed to this kind of music, probably on the radio all the time.
That's right.
You know, and I think that's what it was. And then you start getting older and you start kind of picking things apart a little bit more.
Before everything turned to disco, then
that too.
You know, that everything was a dance thing. Everything
that
was,
too.
You know, yeah, the production was still there, but everything kind of, you know, it was all about going to clubs and going and partying, and you know that things shifted. You know, throughout the 70s.
We were a little young for that, for Studio 54.
No, we didn't appreciate. Of course, we didn't. Well, we didn't. We were too young for even the politics of the. You know, we didn't know what half of this stuff was about. You know, but there's a lot of sexual innuendo, a lot of, you know, hard life type stuff. But the music sure sounded great.
Yeah,
you know, it pulled us right in.
Yeah,
that was the you know, the hook, you know, that was
just great sounding music. And they had they had one other hit called "Treat Her Like a Lady."
Yes, again,
right. I think that was either right. I think it was right after this. So that was kind of funky too. But this one has just got that smooth sound. Also, it starts off with like these nice strings.
Yeah.
And the vocal is just, he's got, you know, a little bit of it seems like I'm going with artists that have a little bit more of a lower range.
Yeah.
Because the lead singer is in the lower range on this one too. He's got a little bit of a deeper voice, but it's kind of an upbeat, you know, "Too Late to Turn Back Now" because I'm in love. I can't change how I feel. So it's just, I don't know. And for me, it probably epitomizes for me in a nutshell, like the kind of stuff that I was being exposed to. And again, I don't know why it is that this song is number one, but it is. Like, it's like that was the number one. I'm like, I don't know why the Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose, a very obscure group, relative to all the other stuff, and even relative to the honorable mentions. I mean, the heavy hitters are probably actually in the honorable mentions for me.
Yeah.
But it's just it. No, and it's one of those ones when you hear it, if you're around.
No, you know, I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying, and I know as a younger person, when you're longing for love, these were the songs that I would probably listen to more than, say, a lot of white artists or a lot of, you know, like the Eagles or like Chicago or, you know, a lot of the bands of the 70s. But when it came to like straight up love songs and falling in love, and, you know, there was always something.
Soul music addressed it directly.
Exactly. And the way it was delivered, the way those voices carried that stuff, that really got inside you. And that's the point. Yeah. That's why it's called soul, you know, right?
Exactly. So, it was kind of, it was not a lot of couching things in other phrases or terminology or you know, it was just kind of, this is how I feel. This is how I feel about you, or this is how I feel about the situation, or my feelings are changing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Soul music would go right to the point, you know, you kind of knew exactly where you stood.
Yeah.
When the song started. So
even if it's the cheesiest song, even like you could have the cheesiest lyrics. Well, we're going to turn
kind
to
of a corny song. It's a pop and corny song, you know. So
it's a corny song, but it's effective.
I love it.
It's all about the delivery.
I love it.
You know, that's it.
I love it. Sister Rose. All right, honorable mentions.
Yeah,
there was two. There was actually three that were on the list and got pulled into the honorable mentions, and these could have easily been. And I'm surprised. I thought two of these were going to be I didn't think the 3 degrees was going to be the overlap. I would have, that would have been a long shot bet. That would have been a 50-1 bet. But what do you got for an honorable mention? Let's see if there's any more. Well,
this would have been in that spot had it when I thought about it, and I'm like, well, is Dean going to pick this? So I was thinking about that, but this probably would have been in that spot as my number 4. And talk about corny songs. You can't get any more cornier than this, the title even. But again, it's all about the delivery, and it's Betcha by Golly Wow by the Stylistics. Betcha by Golly Wow. That really
vocal
love group. Again, another great group from the Philly soul scene, and they did You Are Everything, that the song Rod Stewart covered later on. But
really?
Yeah,
he did a cover of that.
Yeah,
what, You Are
Everything.
Really? Oh,
yeah, he did. Yeah, that was like
get away from that. Rod Stewart.
That was like the early '90s. He did that song.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Yeah. But the style.
Rod Stewart had the gall to cover Broken Arrow. Also, Robbie Robertson's Broken Arrow. Get out of go do something else, man. Sorry.
I remember.
I like Rod Stewart. He's not great at covers.
No, he's not. And that's all that's all he does is covers.
The Great American Songbook. It's like, come on. You do like Hot Legs, and Do You Think I'm Sexy? I don't want to hear like the Great American Songbook from you.
I think you had told that story, and I'm gonna throw our good friend Christy Cuomo under the bus here. That story that she thought that Rod Stewart wrote Broken Arrow, and you were like, I could just picture like the Batman slapping Robin, like no.
The vein in my forehead was pulsing and coming out, like. Oh, that song by Rod Stewart, Broken Arrow. Like,
no.
And his version is horrible. Anyway.
No.
All right, let me take a deep breath.
But I tell you who did
I thought Rod Stewart would get me anxious, but he's getting me anxious.
I tell you who does a really nice rendition of this is Pat Metheny. Did a nice, really acoustic, instrumental. He put out an acoustic album of just real simple guitar. It's a really nice rendition. That's actually what prompted me to listen, because I'm a big Pat Metheny fan. So, but I love obviously the original version, but it just has that really beautiful melody to it. That's strong, and then of course the smooth, the way the vocals just carry that out is just
another simple song. Yeah, just simply put and kind of put right out there. Honorable mention. Jeez, how did this? I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised at you. I'm kind of shocked that Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes did not make your list. I don't know why. I just figured, So for me, it was If You Don't Know Me By Now.
Yeah,
Harold Melvin or / The Love I Lost.
Certainly. I mean, probably way on the list, but at some point. But like I said, these were songs.
Now it's like it was one of the first ones I wrote down to. I'm like, geez, this is like the classic among classics. I didn't know. Here's how stupid I am. I didn't know Teddy Pendergrass was the lead singer of Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. That's how stupid I am. I didn't know that until recently. I'm like, oh, Teddy Pendergrass was singing all these. Like, yeah,
beat yourself up. Why don't you? That's how stupid I am.
The opening of If You Don't Know Me By Now, often confused with Take It to the Limit by the Eagles. When both of those songs start off, people. I was at a music trivia. I was at a Name That Tune trivia with my brother, and they would play like the first 3 or 4 seconds of a song, and you had and we were on a team table and you had a guess, and they started playing the first couple of seconds of If You Don't Know Me By Now, and he's like, "That's Take It to the Limit."
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that is If You Don't Know Me By Now.
Yeah.
Because they are so very close to where they start off with this majestic kind of opening, this majestic swell of music, of violins. And they're almost, probably if you listen to them side by side, they're probably not spot on. But when you don't hear them and you hear one or the other, you get confused. So If You Don't Know Me By Now, forget about it.
What year did that come out? Do you know?
The one I didn't fucking look up.
I'm just curious because I'm wondering if Eagles had that in mind. It came
out first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably.
If You Don't Know Me By Now came out first, and then Eagles came out with their with Take It to the Limit.
I guarantee that had to have been a thing. They probably thought about.
Yeah, I don't know how it could not have been in there.
It's just too close. It's too,
in the lexicon, and also written by Gamble and Huff. That came out in 1972.
Okay.
Also written by the team of Gamble and Huff. So these guys were, again, that Philly sound. just killing it. Take It to the Limit was 1975. So well after and that was
One of These Nights from the album. Yep.
If you don't know me by now, it was a big hit. So there's no way they could not have heard it. It might have been a subconscious thing. I don't know if they're, but it's there. So anyway,
well, it's that's just like when one thinks of melody, that's what you go with, right? It's inspiration to me. I don't see it as ripping it off.
Grab a couple of notes off this and start up our song. Because the arrangement is the same as well.
That's right.
It's not like someone was plucking the Eagles were playing a guitar or a piano and it sounds similar. It's like they literally start the same
with that, that kicks in. Yeah, with the. That's right.
So it might be more than a passing resemblance.
Strings.
Okay. What else you got?
All right. This was a song, a particular favorite between my sister and I. We used to sing this when we were kids, and every time it came on the radio, we would kind of act it out. And it was Midnight Train to Georgia, Gladys Knight and the Pips. So it's
nice.
When especially towards the end, I mean, she absolutely kills it in this song. And by the end of the song, where she's just, I got to go, I got to, we always laugh at that part because it's just so like, she's there in the moment, and it's just, I don't know, it's a classic, it's a staple.
Yeah.
It's probably, I think they're probably the biggest hit, but I remember pretty sure they had their own variety show. Who didn't?
I think they did.
And they always opened or closed the show with this song. That was it, because it was, the one that everybody recognized, so yeah.
They almost made my list with Neither One of Us.
Okay. Yeah.
That was kind of that was kind of in the running, was Neither One of Us, because Gladys Knight has got it so underrated, especially in the 70s. It was kind of like Diana Ross was like the premier, like kind of soul singer, and like making
Gladys
hits.
Knight,
and Gladys Knight was no slouch.
Well, she had the better voice. I mean, it's clear. I mean, you're right. I mean, she never got the credit, the due, because her voice was just so strong. You don't need to do anything with her voice. You don't need to double track it. You don't need to. There's nothing fancy. I mean, it's just pure talent.
Yeah, she could just go and unleash it.
Mm-hmm.
And her brother Bubba.
Unfortunately, she's associated with that song, like with Elton John.
That's what Friends Are For?
I can't stand that song. Keep smiling. Keep talking about.
And then when then Dionne Warwick, like there's one part where they're singing, they just sound all off. They don't sound like
I know. They don't care. Like, that's the thing. I guess that they don't give a shit. So anyway,
they gave it. That's during that time after We Are the World, when everybody was making these
and all these covers were coming out. Yeah, these cheesy covers and like Burt Bacharach songs were popping up. People were doing their his stuff, and it was just okay, whatever.
Right. The next one, I'm going to keep it simple, and we'll probably move on. Let's Stay Together, Al Green. Not much you could say about Al Green, right? It's like.
Yeah, fantastic.
It's like that's Al Green is Al Green,
mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like another one that I didn't want to not recognize. He's one of the giants, and he kind of faded off in the 70s. He was kind of really big,
and
then his popularity just kind of waned and kind of like disappeared, and kind of Tarantino kind of brought him back.
Pulp Fiction,
But he was just kind of like a guy that was really there and really kind of big, and then just didn't continue on. Again, maybe it was the wave of disco that kind of just washed all these artists away.
Yeah. But he always tended to be repetitious in his sound, though. There were several songs that sounded just like Let's Stay Together.
Yeah.
It's the same, pretty much the same melody, same, whatever. And he would just
so this is emblematic. This is like emblematic of Al Green. It's like, Let's Stay Together. A great addition. This is like kind of like a Sunday afternoon song for me. It's kind of like a sunny day, just kind of nothing going on. It's like, it's just really mellow. Al Green, really smooth singer. That's all there is to say about it. Yeah. Let's Stay Together. Not much to say about it. It's just a good one.
All right. So this, you say Al Green, I'm going to go with Marvin Gaye.
Yeah.
Let's, what's not what's going on, but it's from the album What's Going On. Inner City Blues was the third single, and it's probably my favorite track. And again, it's that slow and steady, but this is the situation. And he was, compared to Curtis Mayfield, Marvin Gaye was just giving it to you straight and saying, this situation sucks. What are we doing? You know, that kind of thing. Wasn't necessarily cynical, but it was just more like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, you know what I mean? Whereas Curtis Mayfield took it that step further and said, we need to fight. We need to move on, you know, that kind of thing. So, and that's, I was kind of, you know, going back and forth which one to use, but I put, you know, Marvin Gaye. It's one of the classic albums of all time, you know. But again, it's like one of those albums where a lot of the stuff on it sounds the same, and it's just him putting different vocal cues and things like that. So, but the music, it's almost concept. It's almost like, you know, it could be like a soundtrack to something or something, like a movie soundtrack. Mm-hmm. But each, you know, there's different verses and different, you know, stuff on there. So I love the freedom of that, you know, the expressiveness of that. But this particular song, I really dig the way it just kind of comes in and he just lays it out. He's not even singing half the time. He's just, you know, telling you what's happening, you know, like so. But you know.
Yeah, things were changing, you know, and he was he really kind of decided to. Yeah, he was known for his duets with Tammy Terrell in the '60s.
Yeah, he was very soul, very love songs, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and she passed away unexpectedly very early, and I think that may have changed some of the path he was on. He might have stayed working with Tammy Terrell, right? Because they were such a great match together. Mm-hmm. They really complemented each other's singing really well, and again, they had a stack of hits, and then she passed away very young, I believe in 1968. And then all of a sudden, Marvin Gaye goes on this introspective journey and really starts to say, you know, what you know, I don't want to be corny, but what's going on, right? What is happening here? And I need to say something about it. Right. And even I think Berry Gordy was like, hey, you know, we don't want to go there, and he's like, I have to do this, but I need to. You know, I need to express myself this way, and now it's you know, we talked about it a while ago, but replace Sgt. Pepper as the greatest album of all time. What's going on? Yeah, you know, so that kind of lasting impact. So by all means, you should check out that song, but just check out the whole album too.
Absolutely,
you know, it's a fantastic journey. All right, I went with you. You said, I forgot what song was it? Was it the Curtis Mayfield song you said was cut?
Yeah, it was cut down. They released a single version of it. So.
I have you outdid, and this was on the list. The single version was 6 minutes and 54 seconds. The album version of this song was 12 minutes and 4 seconds long. Epic scope. Papa Was a Rolling Stone by the Temptations. This song is an epic. This is like the prog version of soul music.
Yeah.
It starts off with a funky beat, and it just rests on that for a while. And actually the Temptations were a little mad. They're like, the musical, the instrumentation part is getting more like FaceTime than we are. You know, it's kind of like but it built like it's so perfect because that whole instrumental beginning and all of it just kind of builds.
Yeah.
Right. And you don't know where it's building to. It's like, okay, this is a Temptation song. Where's it going? And then when it starts off and oh my God, it's such a great payoff.
It is.
You know, when you stay with it, even the 6 minute version is epic.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like one of those classic songs.
And it's a darker song for Temptation. Again,
and each one of the Temptations is playing like a different character. They're singing different characters within the song. It's great. It's, you know, and oddly enough, it was actually recorded by a group called The Undisputed Truth within the same year.
Yeah.
But then the Temptations grabbed it and took it all the way to number 1 in 1972, and their version is just like this. Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
You got to kind of like when you put it on, you got to like settle in, like get a drink, because you're taking a trip. It's like that type of thing. It really kind of gets, you know, the way it starts off so simply, it kind of reels you in.
Yeah.
You know, because you're listening and it's just kind of building, and then the the bass comes in, then the strings, everything comes in, and then the song starts.
Those little accents. It's effective.
They're kind of building something, and you don't know what it is because it's not this really big up tempo song.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Temptations come in and just get it done.
Yeah,
just get it done.
That's great. That's a great choice. Yep, absolutely.
All right, we got 2 more, and this is going to be like a 20-song playlist. But again, with your help and hitting us up on the socials, you can add more.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm treading into some pop territory here.
About time.
Big hit. Big hit. It was also covered by Faith No More. And that is Easy by the Commodores.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is a little later in the 70s. So this didn't make the list. So this was probably my only song that was, I think it came out in 77. But man, I mean, come on. It's just like Let's Stay Together. To me, I don't know. This is one of the great, probably my favorite Lionel Richie composed tune. I love this, and I love Sail On as well. But this one, won out because it's just so good. It's just such a great song, and I love what it has to say. Again, it's just who says it? I think it's Roland, right? Roland Urucci, our good buddy. He's always, I'm easy. I mean, I'm easy. I'm easy.
He means it in a different way.
Oh, I'm sure. I know that, but I'm just saying.
The sentiment is the same.
Yeah. I love the Commodores before, like the 70s version of the Commodores, and then they became, their own thing when Lionel
Richie in the front.
Yeah, but then he left the band.
He would disembark.
Yeah, and then he disembarked at his own thing. Hit great heights of fame and fortune, and then the Commodores
started dancing on the ceiling.
They tried to carry on, and it didn't quite work. I don't think without him.
Kind of like Chicago without Cetera.
Right. Exactly. So
right, it's just kind of like. He was a blessing and a curse for them because he brought them success, but it was they Commodores mellowed out as a result.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The sound kind of changed a little bit, but they were able to parlay that into big hits. And then Lionel Richie's like, "Yeah, I don't need you guys."
Yeah.
Then he would go to find a woman to make a clay bust of him.
Hello. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, all right. So, what do you got for number?
I've got one.
Okay.
Another baritone. This is another Gamble and Huff production. I didn't realize, and they wrote it. So I guess you could pigeonhole me if you wanted to corner me. Fan of the Philadelphia sound. I guess we have to say that.
Yeah.
Because you'll never find
the great Lou Rawls. Fantastic choice.
Rawls.
He came close.
1976 hit number 2. You'll never find. Kind of an older artist at the time. He wasn't like a young. He was been around for a while. He was around through the late 50s and 60s. But this song is just kind of really that upbeat, and he's such a pro singer that it's just an easy thing to listen to. But he's got that deep voice too. Not the Barry White low, but kind of more maybe Bing Crosby, more maybe in the same range as like a Bing Crosby. It's a kind of that lower register that he can hit.
Yeah.
This is just so smooth. This is just smooth as ice.
Well, song. People like, I think Brooke Benton comes to mind too. Mm-hmm. He had that really deep voice as well. Rainy Night in Georgia. I know what you're saying, but yeah, he was singing with Sam Cooke, for God's sake, back in the day. He was, I think, one of Sam Cooke's backup singers, like, with a group. But yeah, but that's a great choice.
Another great piece of production. Again, I really like the lush. I
love the piano on that song. That real, like that deep piano, and it almost mirrors his voice.
Yeah.
The lower register, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like those, on the keys. Yeah, I that's a really nice effect. By the way, it's like a nice,
and it's just a well put together song, easy to listen to. I just really enjoy it.
Yep.
All right, one more. Let's do one more.
All right. I mean, again, I think Philly wins out. And who couldn't, Games People Play by the Spinners. It's one of my all-time favorites by them. I love I'll Be Around. I love Rubber Band Man. I love, Could It Be I'm Falling in Love? I mean, they probably one of the groups that had probably the most hits, I would think, out of the Philly sound. But I love when you talk about different characters, so to speak. There's different vocal parts. I love the song. They're kind of telling a story here, especially that one part. And I know it's a guy. It's not a girl. And that that high pitched voice. You know what I'm talking about? That's a guy. That's not a girl. That's one of the members of the group. It's you would think that because they duetted with who was the Emotions, I think. Was it the Emotions with the Spinners that did Could It Be I'm Falling in Love?
No,
maybe I'm thinking Earth,
Emotions
Wind, Fire.
usually worked with Earth, Wind, and Fire, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah, but that when you hear that high pitched voice, when you listen to this song, if you don't know it already, that is a guy. And when you hear it, you know what I'm talking about. So I don't want to go into it, but I'm not going to go there, even try. So because it's so high, but it's funny. But that's a great. I love their interplay, and they seem to have a lot of fun with what they're doing. Very
all those vocal groups really did, choreographing moves like on stage and on TV shows. I mean, they're there to entertain. These all these groups were really there to kind of entertain and kind of bring something besides just a bunch of people standing behind a microphone as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that great entertainment aspect of when you did see them perform. They weren't just guys just standing there. They would all those groups had choreographed moves that they were doing. They were all unique moves too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that kind of came with the territories. Like if you had that kind of vocal group, you guys had to do something to be dynamic and not just people behind there. So it was interesting.
Yeah.
All right, my last one goes all the way back to 1970. This is the earliest one. Is "Ooh Child" by the Five Stair Steps.
Five Stair Steps, yeah, great.
A positive song, just a great kind of simple song, a little hippie-ish, right? 1970, kind of coming out of the 60s,
Mm-hmm.
But it's such a great message.
Yeah.
And it's just a simple song, but it's so great to listen to. It's just kind of like, it's just a fun one to indulge in. And I think it'll help round out our great playlist as well.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there it is.
I think this is a great list. I mean,
it really is.
Let's put it this way: there's so much more to add.
Yeah.
So hit us up on social media and tell us what from the 70s, what your favorite soul songs are, and we're going to add it to the list on Spotify. We'll have a link to that in the show notes, so you can kind of check that out and tell your friends, hey, I added to this playlist on their podcast. So, which we're more than happy to do because it just makes it more fun when more people contribute. So. What else you got? Any closing thoughts?
That's it. This was a lot of fun.
Crossover. Yeah.
This was one crossover, but I think when Philly wins out, man,
who would have thought? I never really bothered to. I wasn't really thinking about that aspect of things. I was just thinking about the songs I liked. And then I'm looking up. It's like Gamble and Huff. It's like, okay, I should have had a V8. There's a pattern developing here, and it seems like it's the Philly sound.
Yeah,
really was a
lot of fun. And there's just like again, and don't be afraid too, guys. If you want to add, don't be afraid to add. It could be the same artist. I mean, a lot of these people had multiple hits.
Absolutely, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine too. So
there's plenty. There's plenty to choose from. Like I said, we barely scratched the surface of the soul era, and like I said, we stayed 74 and before.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's something that's disco-y, Donna Summer was certainly in the back of my mind. She was definitely there.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of other artists that we didn't even go near or their later works for some reason. We were of like minds and we didn't plan that at all, that we both stayed in 74 and earlier. So our famous catchphrase, that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. Thanks for joining us as always. New episodes come out every Thursday, so you can check that out. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast provider, go ahead and follow us. This way you get notified. You don't even have to think about when they come out. You'll just get a little notification when we've got a new episode hot and ready for you. So thank you for joining us on this top 5 soul hits of the 70s. There could be a sequel to this. We could easily do a sequel, a threequel, and a fourquel.
Mm-hmm.
quadruple.
Quadruple.
I don't know what they're called. A fourth one. Anyway,
Yeah.
for Eric, this has been Dean. We'll catch you on the flip side.